Did he practice mental exercises? Did he have a routine? Something structured, daily, repeatable? In a world full of journaling apps, mindfulness timers, and endless morning rituals, we want to know, did he do any of that? The honest answer is no, at least not in the way people tend to mean. There were no neatly labeled habits, no gratitude journals, no breathing exercises or self-affirmations pinned to his wall. But in a deeper sense, the answer is absolutely yes. In fact, he was relentless in his personal mental discipline, only his version was far more raw, chaotic, and existential. It wasn't about optimization. It wasn't about becoming more productive. His practices weren't meant to make life easier. They were designed to make life real. He lived a life that was, in itself, a mental exercise, a daily confrontation with suffering, meaning, solitude, creation, destruction. His routines weren't performed in the name of stability. They were forged to sharpen awareness, to resist softness, to cultivate what he would call the strength to affirm life without illusions. He walked, endlessly, deliberately. It was during these long walks, often alone in the mountains or woods, that his most dangerous and delicate thoughts would emerge. These were not leisure strolls or attempts to calm the mind. They were moving meditations, yes, but with a purpose far more urgent. His steps were part of a dialogue with himself, a process of argument, self-examination, clarity. He believed that movement helped thought breathe, helped it expand, evolve. Many of his most important ideas were born not at a desk, but somewhere under a vast sky with nothing but silence and wind around him. The physical movement was inseparable from the intellectual one. When he sat down to write, it wasn't just to express what he already knew. Writing was his crucible. He didn't journal to soothe himself. He wrote to confront himself. The page was where the war happened. He would sketch out an idea only to dismantle it 2 lines later. He didn't trust himself, not fully, and that's what made his thinking so sharp. He was always testing his own premises, slicing through his own assumptions. His writing is filled with fragments, reversals, sudden turns, as if you can hear the inner tension, the refusal to settle. He wasn't documenting a peaceful mind. He was recording a mind in motion, constantly resisting its own comfort. Where others tried to minimize suffering, he leaned into it, not as a victim, but as a student of pain. He lived with chronic illness, migraines, nausea, isolation, but he never allowed himself to be reduced by it. He believed suffering wasn't something to escape, but something to be used. It was material, pressure that could create form, meaning, inner force, if you let it. This wasn't passive acceptance, and it wasn't masochism. It was creative endurance. He saw hardship as a forge. Each blow, each failure, each limitation was a chance to become deeper, stranger, stronger. One of his most radical practices was internal rather than external, a kind of mental reversal. While others prayed for things to be different, for improvement, for relief, he trained himself to say yes. Not to pleasure or ease, but to everything. He demanded a mind that could affirm not only joy, but also despair, not only success, but also ruin. This was his version of fate. Not merely to accept it, but to love it. Not to grit your teeth through what hurts, but to turn toward it with open arms and say, "This too is mine." Every moment, no matter how brutal, belonged in the story. To reject any part of it was to betray the very pulse of life. He didn't meditate in silence, but he practiced another kind of meditation. Deep reflection while walking, thinking without interruption, observing his own mind as it moved through difficult terrain. He didn't practice gratitude by writing down what was good. He practiced strength by staring directly at what was not. And rather than writing down what he was thankful for, he wrote about what he refused to become. The herd, the domesticated, the obedient. His work was a rejection of numbness. He didn't avoid comfort entirely. He needed space, solitude, time. But he never trusted comfort. He watched it carefully. To him, comfort was where the soul starts to rot. It's where people stop growing, stop risking, stop questioning. So even in peaceful moments, he was alert. He wanted to catch himself in the act of softening, in the act of forgetting the urgency of living truthfully. If he caught himself too at ease, too content, he asked, "What am I avoiding? What have I stopped demanding of myself?" And this is what made his practice revolutionary. It wasn't a discipline built around becoming more efficient. It was built around becoming more alive. He didn't want balance, he wanted intensity. He didn't want inner peace, he wanted inner fire. He didn't want to tame the mind, he wanted to wake it up. That's not to say there's no place for daily routines or structure, but for him, the deeper question was always, what are your practices doing to your soul? Are they making you more open or more numb, more awake or more domesticated, more powerful or more obedient? So while he never left us a list of 5 daily practices for mental mastery, his life offers something far more interesting. A philosophy of confrontation, a habit of turning toward difficulty instead of away from it, a daily resistance to illusion, a belief that life, in all its violence and mystery, is still worth affirming. He didn't practice to become peaceful. He practiced to become worthy of life. That is a far rarer and far more dangerous form of discipline.